Fantastic. Oh, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. I'm RichTheMan, and when I'm not ogling computer graphic based ladies from a popular Marvel related game, I'm releasing top quality entertainment through the RichTheMan channel, which you should all keep subscribed to and make sure your notifications are on. My channel is mainly focused on Marvel Contest of Champions related stuff, but there are exceptions. I also cover Dungeon Hunter Champions, PS4 games, and other little spatterings of other games intermingled with the general consensus of Marvel Contest of Champions. But now on to the most important thing in the pressing matter. What am I discussing in this particular Marvel Contest of Champions related video? Well, it's all about Rogue. Back about 2 years ago, I released this video where I looked at Rogue as a champion that, great things are to come, and I was really hoping to get the champion. And around about this time, I actually went away on holiday to Center Parcs, which funny enough, I'm going to be going on 2 years after, which again is quite weird. But the fact remains, I did try and go for the champion. I did have high hopes for the champion, and I did even release a follow-up video asking the question, did Rogue deliver? Now, it took me 12 minutes to get any kind of assessment. Oh god, the content, yeah, back then. I mean, look, even me, like I'm cut off like here, like what's like this. What's that about? In any case, things have evolved, and my general kind of thoughts and kind of gathering together some kind of argument point and facts and research have got a lot better. So 2 years in the making to ask the question, has Rogue indeed delivered against the state of affairs of the game? Let's have a look. Now, the story of getting Rogue for me, especially Awakened, does take a shape and form of misery and success. So misery is that when I did the Blade Crystals, the infamous featured Blade Crystals back in the day, this was one of the champions I got, which I was excited about and happy about because I wanted the champion. The second thing is then getting the Awakening after the last run of proper Dark Artifacts, as we had the last set of dungeons before it was then changed, which I'm not a huge fan of the changes, I must admit. It does prolong the dungeon grinding, which a lot of players do not like. Now, we all know the facts about Rogue. We know that she can steal buffs because that's her ability in game, and that is her abilities in general. Rogue has been one of my favourite characters for a long time, ever since I was a kid and used to watch the X-Men animated adventures of the 90s when I was young. It was like so cool to see this. Couldn't wait to get home from school just to watch this, see what the next adventure is, especially with Rogue, with Gambit, with Professor X. There's so many characters in the mutant franchises and comic books which we still haven't seen in a kind of a cinematic way, but still it's great to see any kind of great portrayal and at the same time kind of read about this amazing character. Rogue has a very dark past, especially when it comes to her powers manifesting and the damage and eventual death that she causes as a result of touching other people, and this is why we see her with gloves a lot of the time, unless she wants to unglove herself to then attach and steal powers, buffs, abilities from other characters. But when it comes to Marvel Contest of Champions, she was added in September 14th, 2016. And you might be thinking, why is that so important? Why is September 2016 so important? What argument point are you trying to get to? Well, the issue largely remains with buffs and buff stealing. Because at the end of the day, most champions that were released prior to September 2016 were pretty darn standard champions. So they had the power gain, yeah, okay. They had the fury buff, yeah, okay. Regeneration, yeah, okay. Armor buff, yeah, again, okay. So what's the point? The point is how the game has really changed, and this is the point about Rogue being a more valuable champion, or should be a more powerful champion going forward. Rogue is only as powerful as the champion she's stealing buffs from, but if she can't steal the buffs, then what's the point? As we all know, Rogue has absorbed some intense powers. She's even going as far to absorb a chunk of powers and abilities from Mr. Sinister. So that is again proving a big point about the strength of this amazing character. She's even absorbed powers from Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, and those are permanent ones. So how does the champion stack up, and does she cut the mustard when it comes to the new champions in the game? This is an ongoing problem that Kabam really know about and they never address. And that is, as we know, new champions coming in versus old champions that don't meet the scales. And this is why we see a lot of champions like Venom and Carnage, as well with your Winter Soldiers, and also got Luke Cage and Red Hulk getting buffs in order to improve themselves, in order to match up with these standards, because that is the issue. The more new champions you put in, the old champions, which Kabam are like, yeah, use the old champions. You can use the old champions, they're still good. They do not damage output to the same extent as the new champions being put in. Kabam can say whatever they like, but that is the facts, and that is true. But I digress. This video is focused on Rogue, and Rogue it shall be focused on. But here's Sabretooth, and the reason that Sabretooth is important is because he has passive buffs, a passive regeneration and a passive fury. Yes, he does have a fury buff that appears from time to time, but the frustration and the annoying thing is, with new champions being put in, most of those are passive, so Rogue's value just goes down the swanny. And the same thing can be said for champions like Loki, but again, we're focused on Rogue, and Rogue we should focus on. With Kabam's general intent to focus forward instead of focusing backward, which, you know, is a cool trait to have in any kind of games developers mantra, their focus point, it is important to kind of say, and again, go back to that point, if you want us to focus on the old champions to use them in different ways, then you've got to make them as strong as the new champions you put into the game. And having certain champions that have things like energy related things that are brand new. We've got champions like this Bishop, we've got champions like Proxima Midnight, Oversclave. The abilities that they have, should those buffs that they get that are unique be stealed. So if for whatever reason that Thor Ragnarok gets that boon and you're able to then steal it, should you be able to steal it? Well, you can't, because I believe it's a passive. So yeah, should you be able to steal it in order to apply the same amount of damage that the hurt that Thor Ragnarok does? Should you get photographic reflexes like Taskmaster has? Should you even get ice armor the same way that Iceman has? And should Rogue be able to steal all of those buffs and more? Well, the thing is, doing an L1, which is the buff stealing kind of trigger, are you getting a longer time for that buff to remain? No. Is it difficult to get that buff constantly on there, or kind of stay on there, because you only have a brief amount of time before it goes? And sometimes it's difficult to get that touch in on the enemy to then prolong that buff, especially if we're looking at, as soon as you've done the L1, we've knocked the enemy down to the ground. You then have to kind of fly in and hope that they don't activate the SP1 or SP2 or whatever special that they're going to activate, and make sure you touch. And you may go into a block, but then you've got to go into a block yourself in order to make sure you don't hit. The time you've got is very narrow. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, just keep that buff constantly stealed. So it's not exactly the best thing in the world. Rogue is among some of the most fantastic mutant champions in the game, but there are not a huge amount of god tier, god-like, amazing champions that are gonna make you just go, yes, I want to pursue mutants. Which is one of the reasons Kabam keeps throwing out these synergy improvements, which largely focuses your attention to get the new featured champions out of crystals and grinding out arena, and at the same time going, hey, I'll dust off my old champion in order to, yes, take on content that is really difficult and out to the depth of the champion without this new synergy. It's a bit of a habit that I hope Kabam at some stage do get themselves out of, but I think this is going to be a thing for, you know, the foreseeable future. Either way, there are some really decent mutant champions that are, you know, Iceman, we've got Archangel, even Wolverine, but I really would love to see a 5-star version of Wolverine just to make him a lot more powerful. The game has changed, and the 4-star version and the 3-star version or whatever version is just not going to cut it with the new content that Kabam have got, especially coming into stuff like Act 5. And would a champion like Wolverine be good as a 5-star and acceptable, I think is the word, acceptable as a 5-star? And the answer will be yes, because the game has changed so much. If you can allow certain champions like Proxima Midnight to do huge amounts of damage, then yes, that is the answer. If Domino is allowed to do a huge chunk of damage when set up with the right mastery, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands, then yes, that is correct. Now it may seem that I'm really focusing my attention on one particular champion and ignoring the others. Don't get me wrong, there are so many other champions that need a rework or need looking into based on current meta changes in the game game, and it really does look underwhelming from Kabam's perspective that they can't focus their attention on multiple champions. But don't get me wrong, this video is not about kind of going, oh right, well, snobbery against source material, Rich is going to raise source material as an argument point. It does play some factor in, but at the same time, there's Kabam's responsibility to putting in a champion and also changing the game meta, which is obviously applicable against difficulties in game, new champions being put in, how they work with certain things. And yeah, again, the argument point is, what if they can put champions that can do 50,000 damage on their L2 and do things like 20,000 damage on an L2, or even going as far as saying 100,000 on an L2, or any other different kind of special attack, and also the damage dealing with debuff effects, then they need to look at old champions to bring them up to the same standard. If we've got Labyrinth of Legends, which is, you know, it's difficult, and you do need champions that are going to output a huge amount of damage. So would this champion be used for that? No, not at all. So that is really the point. If Kabam put in a champion like Emma Frost and she gets this ice armor form, or a type of armor that is really strong, then should Rogue be able to steal this? The same can be said for Loki stealing these buffs. Does it always have to be passive when they're added into the game? And granted, there are a few champions that have been added in with standard buffs and not the passive form, so there is an option to indeed steal it. But I do feel very strongly about Rogue not getting representation to be as strong as she could and should be. And there are obviously a lot of other champions on this argument point. But I've done enough talking now. I'm going to now throw it over to you. There's going to be a poll that should be pinging up now, which details your thoughts on the champion. Do you think that based on source material, Kabam's changing of the meta, that she should indeed be looked at as well as other champions? Or do you feel she's absolutely fine and I should quit my moaning? Then, you know, have at it. And the same thing goes for the comment section. Your thoughts around Rogue as a champion, and maybe the thoughts about the changing of the meta and bringing up champions to be a lot more stronger based on new champions being put in. I'd like to hear from you. I've been RichTheMan. Make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, I shall catch you on the flip side. Bye bye for now.